a tale as old as time, so I don't really know where to begin. There are so many corridors within layers of things that are seemingly correlated, and it went places I had no idea it would ever go. Or rather, it was in places I didn't know I should be looking, occupying concepts I didn't realize it to be a part of. It would be wrong of me to say that I have been thinking about this deeply my entire life, even though I kind of have, but I've been able to block it out enough to have a good time without thinking about it all the time. Even back in December of 2017, when the U.S. Department of Defense released the Nimitz, Gimbal, and Go Fast videos, I didn't think back to my experiences at all. I guess I was just too busy with life. I had a full-time job and I was going to school. Or maybe I just didn't want to believe it because the implications of it put me somewhere I feel kind of uncomfortable being. It wasn't until I watched David Grush go in front of Congress of April of last year when it really hit home, and I even experienced what some people are referring to as ontological shock in a major way. But I'm over that now, and I want to be honest about it, and I've been more honest about it with people recently. However, people don't and have never taken this well. Very few people have ever believed me, except luckily my wife. Partly I feel because she witnessed something with me maybe 3 years ago now that I'll get into at some point. But there are also things that I wish I could talk about that I can't, as crazy as that sounds. I've been told I can't talk about them, and I want to be honest about that too. But before I begin, I want to say I am completely sober. I haven't even smoked pot in over a month, which is something I enjoy for many reasons. But I want to have a clear head for all of this. I was sober when most of these experiences happened. Some happened during childhood. And also, I have recently talked to a mental health professional about these experiences. And I'm continuing to talk to a mental health professional. I think since I've lived under a paradigm of materialism, it's only logical that I would question my sanity about these things, and which I have. But I don't have schizophrenia, and I have been diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder for talking about these experiences. But that was a misdiagnosis. I do have attention deficit disorder, a mixture of that and bipolar disorder and generalized anxiety disorder. And I say mixture because neurodiversity is a spectrum. We like to pretend that we can label these things in a concrete way, but I believe that those labels are arbitrary. And that, like I said, neurodiversity is a spectrum. Human beings are dynamic creatures. So I'll start with the experience I think is the most important. I intuitively feel is the most important. I want to say I was wide awake during these experiences. So, like I said, I blocked a lot of this out. I don't know the exact dates, but circa 2002, I lived in a small subdivision on the outskirts of a small town in southwest Michigan. I was around 18 or 19 years old when this experience happened. I was living with my mother and my two sisters, and I had a room in the basement of our home. One night I woke up thirsty, so I went upstairs to get something to drink. Coming up from our basement was our kitchen, and you had to walk through the kitchen to get to our living room. So when I was getting something to drink, I noticed the light was on in the living room, and I got a strange feeling. So I went into the living room, and when you walked into our living room, the front door would be right ahead of you on the exterior wall, and to the right of that was a long window that looked out into our front yard. Because the lights were on in the living room, all I could see in the window was the reflection of the living room. So I went to get a better look, and I got close enough to be able to see my reflection. So I kind of adjusted my eyes to see outside. And as I did that, what I saw staring back at me was what people call a gray alien, a stereotypical 3.5 to 4.5 feet tall, looking right back at me, right where my reflection was, and it was looking up at me. I got the feeling that it was a child for whatever reason. And just then, to my left, our front door flung open, and two much taller aliens kind of floated in. And I would say they were probably about 7 feet tall. The one that came in first was wearing a black top hat with a black tuxedo, I guess, and it had a monocle and a cane. It was dressed exactly like Mr. Peanut. The one that followed him was wearing a bright, shiny red dress that I guess you could say is kind of like the dress that Jessica Rabbit wears in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, if you've ever seen that movie. But she also had on a long, red, gaudy hat, and underneath the hat was a wavy, thick blonde wig. And I say he and she, but they looked exactly the same, except for the outfits that they were wearing. The first thing I did was say, "Why are you dressed like that?" And they said, "To make you feel more comfortable." And I said, "Well, it's not working." And they said something I'll never forget. Their exact words were, "We are the mothers and fathers of humanity." I remember it because I thought that it was phrased weirdly. And now I'm saying that they're speaking, but their mouths weren't moving. So I can only imagine that they were speaking to me telepathically, or that the sound was coming from somewhere else. I don't know. But immediately after that, I started getting images in my mind of nuclear war and natural disasters like floods and earthquakes and stuff. And I don't know if they told me that human beings were destroying the planet, but that was definitely the context of the images, and I definitely got that feeling. At that point, I was trying to figure out if I was dreaming, which I realized that I wasn't, and that made my already very uneasy feeling turn into a primal fear. My heart was beating really fast, and I got this sinking feeling in my stomach and my chest, and I just became so overwhelmed with the experience that I completely blacked out and fainted. I even remember my vision kind of narrowing and then just darkness. And then I woke up the next morning in my bed, actually feeling refreshed, I remember. And I don't think I immediately talked about these experiences with anyone, but when I did, I talked about them as if they were dreams. I learned at a young age to talk about them as if they were dreams, in order to be able to vent without facing so much ridicule or judgment. Because when you talk about these things, some people get pissed off, and maybe it's because they're uneasy or they think you're making up a story. So I just learned to talk about them as if they were dreams. So shortly after that experience, I don't know if it was the same year or a year later, I was at my grandparents' house, sleeping in their living room on their couch. And again, I woke up thirsty, which is something that doesn't happen often. And I went to go get something to drink from their kitchen. In order to get to their kitchen, you had to walk through their dining room. And I was walking through the dark. And as I was walking through the dark in their dining room, I kind of got a weird feeling again. So I was kind of like trying to adjust my eyes to the darkness. And when my eyes adjusted, what I saw was at least a dozen of the short ones standing around me. And because of the experience that I had before that, flooding back, being like, oh my gosh, it's happening again, it's real, I became overwhelmed with fear again, and I fainted again. Only that time I woke up the next morning sweating with my heart pounding and still very afraid. And I honestly believe that those experiences stopped because I would faint every time that they would happen. So now thinking back, I'm not really scared anymore, because I don't think that they were trying to hurt me or anything. There's other experiences, but I'm out of time, so I'll have to talk about them in another video.